Do you want to upgrade your English speaking to sound more witty and eloquent? In today's English lesson, I have a guide to 19 English phrases and idioms that will upgrade your English from those boring, basic textbook phrases to more natural phrases that speakers like myself actually use in their English conversations. If you're not speaking anytime soon, you'll definitely hear these in television and in movies. So take notes on this lesson and use the link below to download the PDF that will guide you through each phrase. Now let's get started. Let's learn 19 new English phrases. So here's where learning English from a textbook and learning English from a teacher like myself that will show you how you need to understand these phrases culturally is quite different. Let's take the phrase, I don't believe you. This phrase at face value would just seem like you don't believe what someone is saying. For instance, we can use this if someone says something that doesn't seem to be true. Maybe it seems far-fetched, like a story. They say, well, I saw Michael Jordan at the coffee shop the other day. This person, Michael Jordan, is so famous that he would never be in a local coffee shop that your friend would be visiting. So you might say, I don't believe you. Another way that we use this phrase that is not as similar to this is saying like, I don't believe you. If someone does something that's very kind and helpful, maybe someone brings you flowers. You say, I don't believe you. Thank you so much. It's like, I don't believe how nice you are. And it's used in a genuine way to express appreciation. If someone helps you in some sort of small way, you can say, I don't believe you. You're so helpful. So it's a nice thing to say as well. And it is like saying, like, I don't believe how kind you are. Now, we can also use I don't believe you to express a more negative emotion. For instance, let's say somebody forgets to show up to a meeting. You could say, I don't believe you. That was so important. I can't believe you forgot. It's like, I cannot believe your forgetfulness here. So you'll hear this phrase used in a lot of different ways. Besides just saying that you don't believe something is true, you might not believe someone's behavior because it is so extreme, either really kind or really negative, like they're very forgetful, they're very rude. I don't believe you, you're so rude. It's used in different ways like this.
I don't believe this. I don't believe you.
The next phrase I wanted to teach along with I don't believe you because it is so similar. If you say unreal, now this can express that something is so cool, so beautiful, or just so great that you think it couldn't be real. You're saying it's like it isn't real because it's so great. Unreal. I love this view from this mountain. It's unreal. Or if you want to express, again, disappointment in something or disappointment in someone's behavior, you could say, unreal. I can't believe you didn't bring your money. This just means you're surprised that the person forgot their money. Again, it's saying your behavior is unreal because you forgot something so important or you did something so rude. And just like saying, I don't believe you, you can say, unreal, this was so nice, thank you. So you'll hear these two phrases used pretty similarly, and they also just have a normal, basic way that you would guess these phrases are used, but you will hear them used very different in different cultural situations.
Unreal.
Many phrases that I teach, I often hear in podcasts, and I write them down in my notes app on my phone. This is how I get ideas for phrases that can be confusing to English learners. One phrase that I've been hearing quite frequently ever since I wrote it down, because I needed to teach it to you, is the phrase, all jokes aside. So there's a few different ways you can use this sort of sentence structure here. So it's pretty useful. When we're transitioning from something that's funny or a funny topic, or we're joking about a topic, and we want to speak more seriously, we'll say, all jokes aside, it was very sad what happened, or whatever the serious sentence is coming next. You say, all jokes aside, as in, we are putting humor aside in this conversation. We're done talking about the humorous topic. We're going to move on to the serious aspect of this.
Well, all joking aside, you really ought to be yourself.
You can use this in a couple other ways. Two other ways that came to my mind is to say, well, money aside, I would really like to travel someday. This means if I'm not considering money, if I put the worries about money aside, this is what I'd like to do. Another way that I use this phrase is I say feelings aside. That's like, if we're not considering our feelings about something, or we're not considering someone else's feelings about something, what is the most rational choice to make in a situation? I really like these next two phrases in the lesson. The first phrase is to go as planned.
Did not go as planned.
Usually when you describe something and you say it went as planned, it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. You get a plan together, maybe in a professional setting for an event, and you say, hopefully everything goes as planned. This means hopefully it goes well. And it's kind of implying too that you can adjust and adapt a little, but just hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes as planned. So usually we use this phrase as a positive way to say that nothing unexpected or bad happened. How was your party yesterday? Well, it didn't go as planned because there was a big storm and we had to move everything inside, but it was okay. See how this phrase, to go as planned, it didn't go as planned, is seen as kind of a negative thing. But again, not the end of the world because we can adjust and adapt. Another phrase that we use that's like this is we say, it went smoothly. And this is a bit more informal, just to say, hey, everything went smoothly. It means it went as planned. A phrase that almost means kind of the opposite, but almost sounds like it could be similar, is to say, everything is going as well as can be expected. Now, this phrase is used to be sensitive in a situation that's probably not going to go very well. So you're expecting something bad to happen. Many times, if someone has a family member that is sick and maybe they are nearing the end of their life, you'll say, how is your grandma doing? And you can say, well, everything is as can be expected. Maybe meaning that your grandma is very sick and she's not feeling very well. Again, this is used in more negative situations. Or if you just don't think something is going to go well in general, maybe you have a job interview and the night before that interview, you got no sleep and maybe you're a little bit sick and someone says the next day, hey, how did your job interview go? You might say, well, it went as well as can be expected. This means it didn't go that well. You didn't expect it to go well because of the circumstances surrounding you going to the job interview, being sick and not getting a lot of sleep. So we use this phrase in more negative situations. And I would say this phrase is good to use because instead of just being super negative and being like, it went terrible, it went horrible, it went very bad, you're kind of softening the blow a little bit and you're using more, sweet language, softened language to say that something didn't go well, but it matched your poor expectations. If you've ever wanted to make something work and you've worked so hard, but you finally just have to give up because you realize if you put any more effort into this thing, it is just not going to be successful, you could use this next phrase. The phrase is to cut your losses. So when someone cuts their losses, it means they quit, they end something, they just decide that it's never going to be successful and they're going to stop working now because they don't want to put any more work into it. So maybe after months and months of trying to get a restaurant to be successful, the couple who owns the restaurant cuts their losses. They don't want to put any more time or money into this business because it's just not profitable or successful. So cutting your losses means quitting and not putting any more effort into something that you've worked very hard on already.
It's not too late to cut your losses.
A phrase that's so common, especially in the English-speaking workplace, is to get someone up to speed. We use this to say that we need to inform someone on all the things that they have missed, or maybe they've started the job recently. You need to inform them on what's been going on and how they can perform in their job better. You can also use this phrase, if somebody just simply was gone for a few days from a class or from a meeting or from work, you can say, oh, since you missed, the last meeting, I'll get you up to speed. This means I'll fill you in on everything that you've missed. So you can use fill someone in and get someone up to speed in a really similar way.
So, get me up to speed.
This next phrase, TMI, stands for too much information. If you didn't already know, this phrase feels so modern and hip, like TMI, you're oversharing. Online, people with social media will just spread TMI, too much information, they'll overshare. But in reality, this phrase, TMI, too much information, it's been around for so long and it's used so commonly in everyday conversation as well. And American English speakers like myself, we do actually say, okay, TMI. We don't say this full phrase, we just abbreviate it. TMI, I don't need to hear that. That means it's just too much information. Usually someone is sharing some gross details about a story or just too personal. Maybe they're talking about their spouse and they're just sharing way too much information. Like, you don't need to know that. Or maybe someone just had surgery and they're telling you about all the gory, bloody details of their surgery. You can just tell them, okay, TMI, no more.
TMI, too much information.
One phrase that I think that you should know is the phrase to be in a haze. If you say, I was in a haze last night, it just means maybe you were tired and you're kind of groggy, you're not really paying attention, you're not thinking your best when you're in a haze. Sometimes when people are traveling, they get jet lag, and the next day they are just in a haze the whole day. This means they're kind of tired and their brain's just not really working in a very productive way or a creative way. Another way that we use this word haze, we say something is hazy if we can't remember it very well. We might say, I can't really remember when I was a kid. I kind of have some hazy memories of playing with toy trains or whatever your memories might be. You can't remember them super clearly. You call them a hazy memory. So a good phrase that you've probably heard a lot, but you might be unsure of how to actually use is day to day. This phrase refers to your daily life schedule or your daily routines. So someone might say, oh, what do you do for work? And you might say, well, I'm a dentist or I'm an accountant. Or you might have some really interesting job where the person doesn't really understand what you actually do. So they'll ask, oh, what does your day-to-day look like? And you might describe your schedule of the day, or you might say, well, actually, I get to work at home. So my day-to-day is I work on the computer most of the day and I take breaks, I go for walks. That's kind of what my day-to-day looks like. It's almost exactly like saying that's what my schedule or that's what my routine looks like. So the phrase table scraps I heard the other day, its literal reference is to, what's left on the table after everyone eats. Maybe you feed the family dog the table scraps. That's what we just call that leftover food. This phrase, you might want to think of it more figuratively as well. When you're fighting for something or, you're trying to get something that's just the leftovers, maybe at work, everyone takes their responsibilities and whatever's left is what you get. You could say, well, I just get the table scraps. This means, the undesirable things that are left over. This next phrase, from the get-go. And for some reason, when people say this phrase quickly, this is just me personally, I hear from the get-go, like this green lizard, the get-go. But it's from the get-go. This is just talking about from the beginning. And we often use this phrase to describe the tone or the attitude of someone or some sort of event at the very beginning. So for instance, when I decided to start my own business teaching English online, from the get-go, my husband was super supportive. So I'm just kind of describing his attitude here. Supportive, which is great. I love my husband. And if you want to describe something that was negative at the beginning and it was just kind of doomed, you could say, well, it started out bad from the get-go. This just means from the very beginning it was bad, and you're usually using this phrase to say it started out bad and it continues to be very bad. The wedding was doomed from the get-go, and it turned out to be a very bad event. Like, it's just not going well. Moving on to a more lighthearted, positive phrase, we can use this phrase, a hidden gem, to describe something that is a best-kept secret. We really often use this phrase to talk about, great coffee shops that are very quiet and undiscovered, or a restaurant that doesn't seem to be too busy or popular, but you just think it's great. It's a little hidden gem. For me, I have a Chinese takeout restaurant in my town that is a hidden gem. It's not very busy or popular, but every time I get it, it's delicious and my family loves the food. So if something is very popular or well known, you definitely wouldn't describe it as a hidden gem. If there is a city or a park that your family likes to visit and it's not very popular or well known as a tourism spot, you could also describe the city as a hidden gem.
Kind of a hidden gem.
These next two phrases, in my mind, were kind of the same, but then I started to think about how I actually use these phrases and how other English speakers use these phrases in conversations. And the one different word in these phrases does make a pretty good difference. So the phrase is knocking at your door or knocking on your door and knocking down your door. So when we say, oh, somebody's knocking on your door, we're usually talking about some sort of opportunity just politely being presented. This opportunity is knocking on your door. It just means that it's presented, it's available. If you have a college degree, there are a lot of opportunities knocking on your door. If you are good at singing, there are a lot of people knocking on your door that want you to perform for them. Okay, so it's more polite, it's more gentle. Now, when we say knocking down your door, it's a little bit more aggressive. We're saying that people are clamoring. They're very excited to get whatever you have, whether it's a skill, whether it's an actual thing. Maybe you cook a dish that's so good that people are knocking down your door to eat dinner with you. So this, again, is a figurative idiom. They're not literally coming to your door knocking, but they're calling you, hey, do you want to have dinner? Do you want to make dinner for me next week? Because you are just such a great cook. So let's talk about learning English to describe this next phrase. The phrase is to bridge the gap. So we use this phrase to mean that we're connecting two different people or two different ideas. You can bridge the gap between two different cultures. It means just kind of bring them together, to join them, to not have them be so separated or divided. When you learn English, you usually start out learning in a classroom. And when you try to speak English with people, it can be kind of difficult because you've only learned formal English and you just haven't had that much practice with actually communicating. So to bridge the gap, a lot of people choose a television show where people are speaking more naturally and have more natural intonations than just an English teacher or their textbook, or they're watching videos on YouTube like myself or listening to podcasts so that they can use phrases in their actual conversation. So they're bridging the gap between their English that they learned initially in the classroom, and they're trying to bridge the gap to actually speak English in the real world. So these two types of learning are a little bit separate, but you can bring them together by doing things again like podcasts, YouTube videos, television shows, and then eventually going out in the world and not being shy to communicate. People who are biracial or who have a multicultural household, they might bridge the gap between their two cultures by bringing everyone and their family together and sharing the things that they enjoy so that their cultures are not so separate. And I think this is really important, whether you live in a household with many different cultures or you just live in a neighborhood with many different cultures, which is true of so many places in the United States. We really need to bridge the gap between our neighbors. Finally, if you want to study this video again, I suggest you start from the top. This phrase means that you just start over all the way from the beginning. We use this phrase very specifically to mean that we're going to try something all the way back at the beginning and do it completely again, or maybe we're going to play a video or a movie all the way back at the beginning. If you're saying start from the top, you're saying go all the way back.
Start again from the top.
Thank you so much for studying these 19 English phrases with me. I really hope that you are not shy and you are able to use these in your daily conversations or the next time that they pop up when you're speaking with an English speaker or listening to a podcast or watching an English-speaking movie. You'll be excited because you'll think of me, your English teacher, Kayla. Make sure to subscribe to my email list below to receive the free PDF that goes along with today's lesson. And if you are watching this video, I have one that's coming up next that will teach you some more natural phrases that you'll also want to add to your vocabulary. So stick around and watch the next video. Visit EnglishWithKayla.com to check out my course as well. I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Goodbye.